We are live. We are live. Say hi to
Hello.
the Instagram audience.
How you going?
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the JD Photo Podcast. We have Erik Sandstrom, not Sandstorm. I had this big plan to play the Darude Sandstorm theme as he's coming on. No, it's Erik Sandstrom. He's an incredible photographer. You've been in the industry for 8 years and then 5 years full time as a wedding photographer, which is really difficult to do. So we're definitely going to talk about that journey into becoming a wedding photography and an artist, but also juggling that with being a business owner. So you have really good work. I've definitely looked up to it and definitely have got a lot of inspiration from what you do. I feel like I found you a long time ago, early on. Given that you kind of fall into that style of, how would you even describe your lighting use? You know, it's very, very different to what most people do, but also timeless at the same time, right? So it kind of ties into that a bit more of a kind of hipster vibe, I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
But I love it, and I try and produce images that have that similar kind of aesthetic. Sorry, guys. Getting a bit of a phone call there. I've lost my train of thought. So I'm going to start talking and I'm going to get Erik to introduce himself. Say hi, what you do, how you do it, when you first picked up a camera.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
My name's Erik, as you mentioned, and I've been in the industry now for quite a while, it feels like, but it's probably not that long in terms of like a career span. It's 8 years I've been shooting weddings. Fell into it like most people do. Loved photography, had a corporate job.
What was your job?
I had a few different jobs. It was mostly sales and marketing roles that I had in big corporates.
So you had a bit of a business marketing mindset before you came into the industry?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it kind of set me up well to think about the sales process that comes with running a business, any business, the importance of marketing, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So from the get-go, I kind of knew, regardless of what I'm doing, you have to get what you do out there to people to find it. So that was always a big thing for me.
You need to be at the front of the shop in order for people to buy from your store.
Yeah.
So if you're down the back, no one's going to see you.
Really. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of photographers feel like marketing and sales can sometimes be a little bit of a dirty word. Not prepared to really oversell what they do, but there's definitely a spectrum of what sales and marketing is, and I kind of learnt that working in the corporate space. I was never a cliche salesperson that could, sell ice to Eskimos. I was very much the quieter, just help people figure out what they need and then find solutions. So that was my background for about 10, 15 years before I went full-time as a photographer.
Brilliant, man. I love that approach with sales. That's what I try and do. I think it's not necessarily about selling anything to anyone. I think that's a sleazy sales person.
Yep.
It's about understanding what your client needs and trying to provide them with the best service that you can. So that's what I try and do in a sales call.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And I think people who don't have a sales background automatically default to picturing a used car salesman type, cliche, where I think we all need to have the ability to sit in front of, a person, a couple, whoever, and understand what they need, ask the right questions before you kind of launch into telling them everything you do and how you do it. It's better to understand that process of solving problems.
That's fantastic. You realised this. When did you realise this? When you were in sales?
The first couple of years were a bit rough, right? Like you're kind of learning off people around you, like anything. And you try to perform in a sales role that is maybe not yourself, and then you realize that you can be yourself in a sales position.
So what you were doing was going against the general, what other people were doing and what they were teaching you to do. Yeah,
and everyone has different personalities, so we all communicate differently to different people, and I think the introverted versus extroverted ways, and sales can feel very, an extroverted type industry because you're out there networking and you got to be prepared to talk in front of people you've never met before, and you've got to meet individuals and be kind of a personality that can help sell things. And where there is a whole other side where a more introverted type personality can be very, very successful because perhaps their listening skills might be a little bit different.
I actually learned sales the way you describe it. So I learned that if you get through a sales call and you don't ask a question or you don't pitch and you just ask questions, that's a successful sales call.
Yep.
So the most successful sales calls are when you don't have to sell your service. You're just answering your client's questions and trying to find where their hesitations might be and seeing how you can resolve that. Not sell in that way, but just in a way if you can actually make your service suit their needs.
Yep.
And I think if you have that approach, especially as a wedding service provider, which is very client-centric, right? You very much want to make sure you meet the client where they're at and try and provide them something that they need. I think you're going to be much more successful than trying to have that tactic of, just trying to shove stuff down, get them through.
Yep.
What's up, people jumping in? Feel free to say hi. We have Erik Sandstrom, who's a full-time wedding photographer. He does some really amazing work. You should check out his Instagram, which I will link later. And yeah, please feel free to start asking questions. I think we have an Amazon delivery and my puppy's going mental. What's up, Rob? Thanks for jumping in. What's up, Taj? How you going, guys? I forgot to do a photo with you. We're going to have to do one after.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Usually do a little picture. Yeah, so that's a really interesting journey. So tell me about the first couple of months when you were in photography.
So I basically picked up a camera. I was always a keen cyclist and mountain biking, and got to a point where I was probably getting a little too cautious and not, racing and riding as best as I was when I was younger. So decided to pick up a camera and go to these events and shoot cyclists, mountain bikers doing their thing, and fell in love with photography that way. Was lucky enough to start shooting for some magazines and travel a little bit with that, going to World Cups in Europe and bits and pieces, and just always doing it alongside my full-time corporate job. Got paid very, modestly for the amount of work that you do, but just loved it. Fell into shooting a wedding for a friend, like, most wedding photographers do, very daunted by the process of doing it. But I'd been photographing other things for 5-6 years, so I felt like I could do it. One leads to many, and then you get to a point where you realize you've got enough on the books to decide whether you give up your career or, and take the plunge. And for me, it was an easy decision. I was ready for it. I was ready to exit the corporate world. I was really enjoying the weddings that I'd already done and the process and the reward that comes with being there and delivering beautiful photos to someone. It's a weekly occurrence that you get couples who come back and are ecstatic and happy and grateful and thankful for the work that you've done in the corporate world. Maybe once a year you might get a pat on the back at your review if you had a really good result, but weddings is just that constant flow of positivity.
It's a different industry, and it's a hard industry to get into though. What was that transition like, and when did you feel like you were ready to make that jump from the corporate kind of space to the running your own business, which is what you're doing? Yeah,
it was definitely a slow process. I think I needed to be 100% confident that I could deliver or fulfill an entire wedding day from a documenting point of view, but then also add value to what couples are looking for. So I wanted to be, very sure I could do it, basically, and not mess up. So I started slow, and I think one of the big pieces that I hadn't pieced together in my photography so far was actually just shooting people, and like the portrait hour, spending an hour with couples.
It's hard to pose people, man.
How do you learn to pose someone? Yeah. How do you learn to make them comfortable? Yeah. What's that look like?
What did that look like? What was that like for you?
I felt like it needed to be as least intrusive to how they felt in terms of as possible, and that means guiding them, but not taking them to a place where they start to feel uncomfortable, disarming the camera, helping them to forget that we're even doing photos. And I think there's a whole process to warming people up to them being comfortable.
It's that rapport, right? It's that which is just a fancy way to say having connection and relationship with someone.
Yep.
I think that's so crucial to good photography.
I think so. I think what we do is we have to develop that very, very quickly. So, and there's a process. So it's not ideal to turn up to a wedding and never having met your couple, but the more time you can spend with them, the more you can be inquisitive about them and their lives, and the lead up to their wedding day will really, really help you through that process. So I learned, going back to my sales background, was if you can sit and listen and ask the right questions when it's time to take their photo, you've got something in common, or you've got rapport that you can really use to start the conversation. And it's not just stand here and do this. It's let's just chat and walk and take photos.
You're able to have a laugh with them.
Yeah,
able to have a friendly demeanor as well.
Yeah, I think there's a certain amount of banter that can come, and understanding or reading the play. Probably one of the biggest challenges is realizing that everyone is different, and what works for one couple doesn't work for another, or what works for one really individual doesn't work for another.
Yeah.
So you got two people standing there, and one is getting it and the other one's not, and you got to bring both of them together and make that sort of. You got to help their chemistry be evident, and make them comfortable in front of the camera so that their chemistry can be seen. So
every wedding photographer that I've spoken to has said the same thing. It always comes down to how you relate with your couple. It doesn't even really come down to the images in the end. The images are an important part, but to get those images, you need to have that this connection before you take the photo, because you're never going to get photos of people who aren't happy, and if they're not happy working with you, you're always going to. We see things as people, right? And we can pick up on little details, and if you can make someone feel comfortable and relaxed, I think that's when you can really capture work that stands out. In my opinion, at least.
Yeah, and I think it's a piece to the whole puzzle, really, and that's what I love about this industry is. Yeah, you can build good rapport, you can have a couple of funny jokes and get them laughing, and then you've got to layer in your photography skills, your lighting, your composition, and you've got to be able to do that on the fly. You've got to be able to, if you're on engagement shoots are one of my favorite ways to really practice and hone in on this skill is, for an hour to an hour and a half, wander around, take photos, build rapport.
Do you offer that with all your couples?
I do.
Great. Yeah.
And I experimented over the years where I kind of took it in and out of my packages, and I found when I didn't have it in there, it was, I think, a little bit more of a difficult process on wedding day to break down that barrier. You had to do it on wedding day, where now when I talk to couples, I say, look, it's not about you just getting more photos. It's about you warming up to me and the process, so that when we get to wedding day, you're like, just Erik, it's all right.
I find it so hard to secure those in. I feel like I offer them all of my packages, but a lot of the time people or clients were getting in touch asking me to do things that were a little bit unrealistic, maybe drive an hour and a half south or an hour and a half north into the hills. And maybe if I was charging a bit more, I could accommodate it, but I think it's probably where I was priced at. So that was one hurdle. Then the second hurdle I had was the timing. It was always like, usually I would do these in off season when they're free, when I'm free, and we'll try and book it in, then it'll rain. I'll be like, oh, now we can't do it, let's do it next week, and then can't do it next week, and so I could never secure them. So
well, honestly, I think there's a bit of you got to kind of set the boundaries of how it works. For me, going back to what you're saying about the travel, I was prepared to go anywhere. And even now, if a couple said to me, one of my couples, hey, we want to shoot in Denmark for our engagement shoot, I'm like, yeah, cool, we'll go. It's not going to cost you any extra, but I'll go for curiosity's sake to see what we could create down there and just the adventure. And I would say, look, it's just got to fit in with my schedule, but let's make it work. And the same thing, I think back in Melbourne when I first started there's so many beautiful destinations that are 1 hour to 2 hours away from Melbourne. And I wanted to go and see all of them. So I really sort of carved out my niche there when I got started. I was shooting down in this forest. It was about 2.5 hours drive. And I did a little like Instagram promotion, when I first got started, free engagement shoots. But the condition was they had to drive to this forest. And those photos, years and years later, people are still going back and saying, oh, can we do this? And I did 3 or 4 of them down there for free, driving down each time. And it was such a rewarding process. And then after that, couples were calling me to say, we want to shoot down there. So then I'd block a week out in May and say, okay, cool. I'm going to be there for 5 days. And I'd just book back-to-back days shooting in this location. So I feel like things like that never happened unless I'd said yes in the first place and explored. So I think it can be, if you can make it work, go to the places that feel uncomfortable or, seem a bit more of a hassle, and you might come out with some of the best results.
That's a very kind of almost spiritual approach to it. You're a spiritual person?
Nah, not at all.
Not in the sense of religion, but I was thinking more like, spiritualism, meditation.
I do kind of believe sometimes that, things happen for a reason. And
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yep.
Yeah, I do. And I think it's just being optimistic, open-minded, and I don't know. Just so many things in life, for me, is, just in general, twists and turns, things that have happened unexpectedly because, you just did something a little different or you just said yes to something. And
you never know what opportunities it's going to lead to.
You never know what's behind the door until you open it or step through. So I think I hear it quite a lot in our industry as photographers, particularly wedding photographers. People ask me all the time, what does it take to get to be a full-time wedding photographer? And then I'll say, you got to do X, Y, and Z. And man, I'm not doing that unless I get paid for it.
People don't want to do it.
No,
this is what I was saying with Hayden and Sam last night. It was even if you showed everyone how to use a camera,
yep.
You showed everyone the settings, the composition, the lighting, and you spent 6 months with them getting them perfect. Are they still going to hustle like you have and have this open mind nature, which is let's just do it. Let's just see where it goes, and put the effort in to organise free shoots in Melbourne on a 2-week holiday or whatever, and shoot in this magical forest that takes you 4 hours round trip, and then edit the photos. And I was like, I really don't think people will. I think it's so difficult.
It is, and I think you can put it in the context of if we go back to talking about marketing and sales, right? So if you're going to pay for marketing, it might cost $5,000 to $10,000 to set up a really good booth at a wedding expo, right? What if you, instead of spent $5,000 to $10,000 on that, did a whole bunch of free work that is interesting, or just said yes to things that might cost you money in travel, and you go and do those, and those things then create work that resonates with people or is different or stands out or opens a door, or you meet someone there who then opens a door for you. The possibilities are endless, and it's not just you giving something away, you're actually investing in something that would be of value down the road.
I agree. I think the most important thing to do as a person trying to get into business is to keep your calendar full. And this is what you're talking about, is you want to make sure you're always busy and you're always creating opportunities for yourself.
Yep.
You don't want to just be sitting back and waiting for the client to come through the door. Yes, it's expensive to host, to market.
Yeah.
But it's also one part of the equation. Like networking is the other part of the equation, right?
Yep.
And this is what you're doing. You're networking in a very unique, creative, journey-centered way.
Yep.
Where you're just like, let's just see where it goes, and go and do it. And that's really quite interesting, I think.
Well, one of those first engagement shoots that I gave away in 2017 or something like that, I've now done 4 weddings through their referral network. So I ended up shooting their wedding, and I didn't have a lot of wedding content. Yeah. Right? So they met me. We did an engagement shoot. The process was nice. And then they said, hey, he was pretty cool. The photos were good. Do you want to shoot our wedding? And I did. And then I'm actually in 2 weeks going back to Melbourne to shoot another one of their friends' weddings. So like years and years and years and years later, it's still paying, that dividend of doing one free engagement shoot back.
That little network or relationship you built all that time back from doing one free shoot.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love free shoots. I say to everyone that they need to shoot for free before they start to do things like marketing or spend money on whatever. I actually think it's better for photographers to shoot for free, get into the industry that way, than try and discount their work heavily or offer really low rates.
Yep.
I think that's more damaging in the long run compared to if you had your rates and you had your packages and what you needed in order to sustain your business, but then you also looked at the other gaps in your calendar as ways that you can expand your reach. And
Yep.
that's how I looked at it, at least. I always done free stuff for
Yep.
exposure, whether it be going to a conference and meeting other photographers, or whether it be organizing an editorial, or organizing a free shoot with a couple. I think all of those things are what make up networking.
Yep.
And I think people get a little bit lost in what networking is. They think, it's a room of people with suits, shaking hands, smiling at each other, handing out business cards.
Yep.
That's one part of it. There's so much more to how you can get your name out there, and how you can build relationships with not only couples but with other professionals. This podcast is a method of networking for both of us, for instance. And
and I think you can have an excellent portfolio of photos, right? And when a couple's coming in to look for a wedding photographer, they're going to compare your portfolio with someone else's, your Instagram with someone else's, right? And they might have 5, let's say. Until they know your personality, like, I don't think they're going to really... They might choose someone based on photos, but once they meet you, they need to know that they're going to, you're third wheeling all day, right? You're the one vendor that's going to be with them the entire day. So if you're not getting along, personality-wise...
Where do you think images rank in the importance of skills? So obviously...
It's a big piece because it needs to be the door opener. They need to find you. They need to see... They need to be confident in what they see. And I think this is where our industry can be quite tricky and deceiving, is that you can be in your first few months and you can pull out a banger, right? Yes. And put that banger out there and people are going to, wow, you're a good photographer. But what comes with years of experience is being able to then be able to do that every weekend for every couple that you meet, no matter the circumstances.
What's the secret?
I think it's repetitivity and practice, and going back to what we were just saying. If I've got a gap in my calendar, I am going to go and do free engagement shoots, or I am going to offer to shoot projects, because it's giving me time to practice. And the more time I have to practice, the more I can refine things. And I still go out now, like all my engagement shoots that I do with couples, it's good for them to get comfortable, but it's a chance for me to practice new things. So I do all my experimenting on engagement sessions, and I'll go out, and it might be, I think the longer you do this, the more you start to refine down pieces of your day that you want to get better at. So it might be a particular type of pose or a particular way you use light. You start to identify that you've got the idea, you're trying to execute it, and it's not quite there yet. And I think the really successful photographers are the ones who look at it and go, I'm going to try it again and again and again until they perfect it. And sometimes it takes 5 or 10 goes, and that might be 5 or 10 different couples on 5 or 10 different engagement sessions. And then when you finally nail it, you go, okay, that's why I wasn't getting it before. And then suddenly you've got a very valuable tool in your toolkit, right? And it might be 6 months later, you're at a wedding and that lighting opportunity comes, and you're like, I know what we're going to do now, guys. This is going to be amazing. And then the couple, they experience that and they think, wow, like just out of nowhere, you pulled this amazing photo.
Out of nowhere.
They don't even know, right? Where the first time you were trying it, you were there for 5-10 minutes trying to like figure it out. And that's a bad experience for a couple. So there's this transition where you go from it being difficult to easy and smooth. And I don't think you want to be doing too much of that on a wedding day.
No, you need your weddings to be smooth and effortless. That's, what you said, a lot of really good stuff there. The thing that I'm taking away a lot is you have a passion for it, and you put the time into practicing and learning, which is such a crucial part of becoming a good photographer, in my opinion. The best photographers that I speak to have this passion. They have the back in doing something that they loved, and then they put the time into becoming obsessed with lighting and becoming obsessed with composition, refining it over a period of time, and then mastering it to the point where they can bring it into a profession and actually sell it to people. And I think that's what you've done. You've obviously are very passionate about images and really perfecting it. I was obsessed with images for a long period of time. I lived and breathed photography, for years as a university student, between 2018 and 2021. Spending hours in the print labs, printing images, looking at the colors, tweaking them slightly, working out the composition, the different crops, all of these various technical skills as well as creative skills in the studio and as a street photographer. But that passion and that obsession and that always constantly thinking about lighting when I did transition and graduate and start taking on professional work, I just had a level of confidence with my images, and then I could bring that into working with people, and over several years, like you said, it got to the point where I was seeing various lighting conditions and practicing it over and over and over again, and I did a lot of free shoots as well, early on, and
And I think that comes into all parts of the wedding day. So when I first started, I remember it was James Simmons who came out to Melbourne and did a workshop, and it was a week before I had my first really big wedding, and I had no idea how to approach the portrait session at that time. Like, I'd done the engagement shoots, but I really hadn't figured out what it's like on a wedding day yet. And he just threw out this workshop a whole bunch of nuggets, and it was a few prompts and a few ways just to lighten the mood. And it being a newbie, I absorbed all of that and then took it to my next wedding and used it, and then it worked. So then you're like, okay, there's a bit of a formula, and then you start to use that over and over, or you start to refine it, you start to adapt it to your own ways, and then it transforms from something that you picked up from someone else into then your own thing, and you learn how to adapt it to get your results. So that's the whole, outside of just for taking the photo, it's the how to get the person in front of the camera to relax and adapt and
What's
respond.
your favorite prompts, man?
They do change a little bit, but there's some that I've just used for a long time. I love, in front of when I'm there with a couple, is to talk about their relationship. Start asking them questions. So, where'd you meet? How'd you meet? And it's usually some sort of a funny story that comes to it. Where was your first kiss?
Mm-hmm.
What was it like? Can we reenact it right now? Do it in slow-mo. Let's have a laugh with it. Just go. And that's creating laughter. And they're like, oh my God, it was in the back of a car. There's always something that comes to that. They laugh, and it's those photos in between that really make that. And I hate the simple prompts of okay, kiss. That's not a great photo. No. But when you're talking them
get
through
those emotional sparks,
when you're reminding them of a time, and a time that maybe they don't think about all that often, and then you kind of play it along a little bit, it can make for a nice little series of photos.
Yeah, I love that. I think prompting is very crucial to achieving good photos. I've really got into I haven't actually tried it a lot of times, but I'm going to start trying it a lot, is the machine gun kisses. Have you heard that one?
No.
Yeah, so you use a lot of machine gun kisses, fast kisses on the cheek or something.
Oh, right.
And you kind of just get that little silly moment. But it almost gives you that, because you both giggle when you're going machine gun kisses, and then you get that little laugh of in between kisses, and you kind of get those in between moments at a high frame rate, which I'm going to kind of bring it back into gear in a bit. So this has been an incredible journey, Erik. I just want to say, James Simmons, he comes up in every podcast I do. That guy built such a name for himself. He really did a good job. I want to get him on the podcast because I think he definitely was a big role model for me as well in terms of his image early on. I did a deep dive into finding all these photographers when I was getting into weddings, and there was a few that stood out and a few that I selected and pieced the images together, and James Simmons was definitely one of them. And I just wanted to draw attention to how frequently his name has come up in like every wedding photographer I've had from Perth. 3 out of 3 have said their name.
Yeah, I actually discovered him while I was in Melbourne. So
there you go.
His work is so beautiful and unique, and he's a master of light. And
how do you reckon he got to that point?
I don't know.
Thanks for jumping in. How are you guys?
I don't know his full story, but all I know is I've looked at his images over the years and thought, how the hell did he do that? And I love that kind of process of deconstructing what others do and then trying to figure it out. And I think it's kind of part of our journey is to try and you kind of start out imitating, copying, and trying to work out what other people do, and then you work from that, right? And I read a really good book not too long ago. It was called Mastery, and was talking about the fact that for the first 5 years of whatever you do, it's about copying, imitating, and learning. And it does take that long to really kind of figure it out.
It takes ages, man.
And I think that's part of my journey is probably being patient with the learning process. And too many people come into this thinking that, you've got to master it all really quickly. And I think maybe social media's drilled that into people. Like if you can't get on top of a trend very quickly, then you miss it. And I think that flows into sometimes what people do with this genre of work is they think that unless you're doing it right now, you're going to miss out. And it's a process. It's a long process. And I think you've got to allow that time. And, you know, the first 5 years, you're looking at other people's work and you're figuring it out. And then, you know, the next 5 years after that, you're defining your own style and you're refining what you've learned and you're trying to figure out your own voice and you're becoming a little bit more consistent in your own work. And then the book goes on to say after 10 years is when you've mastered it, right? You're at a level where you're award-winning, you're recognised and you're doing the most unique, incredible work. So it is a journey. It's a 5, 10, 15-year journey, not just I'm going to be a wedding photographer today and who knows what I'll be next week kind of thing.
How do you stay composed through this process? Because it's not an easy process to go through and to be patient. People lose their minds. It's stressful at times. It's so Isabel says Erik work is just stunning. Come on.
Thank you.
Bao Cow photo. What's up, guys who are jumping in? Thanks for popping in and for watching. What's up, Jason? Feel free to ask us any questions. I'm going to say Erik is an expert in wedding photography. You've been doing it for long enough to be called that, I think. His work is stunning. So feel free to ask us questions as we're going along. We're going to start to dive into his journey and how he stayed composed throughout his journey, because becoming a wedding photographer, a full-time wedding photographer, is probably a question you get asked a lot, and it's difficult. It's difficult to do, man. How are you so chill? How do you do it? How do you get through this journey so calmly?
Yeah. Oh, it's you know, it's a roller coaster, right? Like it's ups and it's downs, and there's years
highs, lows.
Yeah. It's so difficult because we're seasonal. So you know, you go through a really hectic 3 or 4 months, and then you have a really quiet 3 or 4 months. And every winter, I get to about mid-July, and I have a little freak out and think, "Oh my God, I'm not working, and I'm not going to work again." And then September rolls around, and I'm flat out. So, I think the more years you do it, the more you start to level out those peaks and those troughs. The more you can build a community around you. I think the one thing I learned stepping into this industry is how warm and welcoming the community really is. There's a real lack of competition and a real kind of support of community over competition, and I think that's great. I'm forever grateful to some of the my now friends who were wedding photographers when I first started out, and I reached out and just said, "Hey, can we get coffee?" And they said yes. We had coffee. We sat down. We talked. We, you know, just didn't hit them up to, you know, get work off them. I hit them up just to say, yeah, it's good to know people, right? Because we work on our own and we sit in our office and we're a sole trader. And so I think the more you can network, the more you can work with other people, it can really help lift you up. And I know every time we get to a cycle where weddings are a little slower on the bookings, you know, I just talk to my other wedding colleagues and we're all going through it together. So it's not something that just one individual might struggle with. So, yeah.
That's great advice. I'm just going to bring Isabel's question in here. She's asking you how you edit colors and your general style. How did you get to that point of refining? Is there any tips for color grading skin so well?
It's a forever evolving process.
Back to the journey.
Yeah,
it's this 5 year, 10-year kind of craft you've been going on, and you've yeah.
It's like you go from way undersaturated to way oversaturated to a little bit undersaturated to a little bit over. You know, you kind of just you narrow it in, and you've got to really live with your style for you edit for a little while, right? So like I think the thing I learned early on was I'd change my style from wedding to wedding, because I'd look at it and go, oh my God, the greens are terrible. And then the next week they were yellow, and then the next week they were completely muted. And I never actually lived with them long enough to figure out what I actually liked or why it wasn't working. And that's kind of the journey early on. You then start to figure out what you do like, and I think you sample a lot of other work from other genres. You look at things around you in life and think, you know, what do I actually enjoy about these colors? You know, it's as simple as breaking down, you know, particularly the greens for me have always been one to...
Greens are hard, man.
Greens are real hard.
Especially on a Sony. The Sony kind of has like a green hue, doesn't it?
Yeah, they've worked over the years. They've gotten better and better.
Yep.
But early on, everything was a weird green hue. And So yeah, it's hard, and skin tones are another one, right? Like, you know, every single person you work with, who you photograph, has a slightly different color of tone in their skin tone.
But we also all perceive color differently, right?
We're all very different, and as a photographer, it's our responsibility to make sure that our people that we photograph are beautiful and they look amazing and they look their best, and you know, oversaturating or undersaturating, or, you know,
people are saying they can relate.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really, really hard. Yeah. So I can literally shoot a wedding and then edit it, and I think, wow, those color tones came out perfect. Yeah. And then the next week I'm like, oh my God,
what have I done?
What have I done? What's wrong with this? So
I've been there.
It's also not uncommon for me to, you know, when I do a sneak peek and then I go back and look at that sneak peek a week later and go, oh my God, that was, I don't know what I was looking at. And then I change it and then I edit it and then I keep working on those colors until I really get to a point. And I think it's important to not just edit and then put your work straight out there for everyone to see. I think you've got to really let it bake a little bit as well. Do your edit, let it sit for a few days, a week, come back to it, have a look at it with fresh eyes. That often can really help. And then narrow in, and don't make drastic changes. Just work with little changes.
Be patient.
Be patient with the process.
Yep, I like that advice. Someone saying, oh yes, I do that too. Oh my God, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Thanks for your input there, Isabel. Really appreciate that. That was a great one. Social media has impacted photography a lot. I'm sure. So you've been in the industry for a decade.
Yep.
Almost. What's the changes?
It started off as a really fun platform to just share work, which was, you know, a really exciting and exhilarating time for a photographer. I think early days with Instagram, it really just opened everyone's eyes to the world of where you can go and what you can photograph, and it became a brilliant way to share. It then drifted into the money making territories, the influencers, the trends, the everything else, and now it can be quite a minefield, particularly for new people coming into the industry. It can be quite daunting if you don't have a big following. It can be You can find so many reasons why, you know, we all compare your work to other people's constantly.
I think that's the big one, is comparing your work to other people.
I think it's, I actively try not to follow too many other wedding photographers.
I don't look at many, especially ones with bigger followings than me. I saw social media as essential to business. I have severe anxiety posting on social media. I don't post any of my own stuff anymore because of that. So I employed someone to do it for me. It was a big stepping stone. And it did definitely paid off. And I almost in a way hate it, because I don't like the place of social media where it's it almost seems like I feel like I'm more of a marketer than a photographer nowadays. And I want to be a photographer. But I know I can't become the photographer and break into the industry without these things that everyone else has, because you're competing with them and you're trying to come into it, and there's a lot of photographers trying to get into the industry, man. There's a sea of them. Do you think social media has made it harder?
I think it's made it more confusing, that's for sure. To be fair, I can accredit a lot of my success to social media because I used it as a marketing tool, and you know, I've paid for ads and I continue to pay for ads. So when I transitioned from Melbourne to Perth, a big part of that was getting my work in front of people who have never heard of me or seen me, and the only way to do that is to pay for it, unless you're going to go viral, and I didn't have the energy to try and create content to go viral. So, and it doesn't have to be huge budgets, you know, sometimes it's just $5 a day, but just very gently placing your work out there, letting people see it, letting them follow, and if you can do the ROI calculations behind that, you can work out that it's actually not that expensive if you're booking more weddings. So if you can figure out how to do it well, it can really pay off. And usually my advice I give to people is to really experiment across all areas of social media in different ways. So for me, when I first started, I would take 6 different photos and I would post all 6 of them in an ad, or separate ads, sorry, each of them at $5 a day, and run them for a week and see which one resonated most with people out there. And then,
there you go, A/B testing.
But A/B testing, and then use that and refine it and just keep testing, and, you know, stories versus reels versus, you know, I think you got to put the work in to figure out where your work reaches your people best.
Well said, yeah.
And once you figure that out, it can be a real asset.
Yeah, well said. I spend money on meta ads as well. About $35 a day I spend, something like that. I have 4 ads running, and whichever one does the worst goes booted, and then I bring another one. I continue cycling it that way.
It is a cycle. It is a job to do it, and I think too many people just have a really good photo and they boost it and then wonder why they didn't get any results from it. And I think you've got to really put the time and effort into learning how and why. And I think it's also important to track the metrics that come out of it over a longer period of time. So sometimes people put it on for a week or two and wonder why it didn't happen. I've tended to track my leads and my workflow over the years, so I can see now confidently that there is
at least a year there, because the thing that I've noticed with it is couples would touch base with me and then they'll go away. And then they'll see my ads, and then they'll come back to me when they've seen my ads, and it's a continuous exposure and reminding that's really important in this day and age, because maybe a couple's not perceiving the value in you, but then all of a sudden you're showing up all the time, and that has a little flick of a switch, and now they perceive you as valuable, and they will increase their budget to get you. Or maybe it's they are in the early stages of their planning and they don't really know what's happening, and they're changing their date and they're getting all organized. If you weren't constantly reminding them you exist, they might find someone else in that process and book them, you know?
Yeah, and I think breaking down the process of planning your own wedding, right, you're probably only in a cycle of about 2 to 3 weeks where you're looking at photographers. And then once you've found your photographer, that's it, you stop looking. So the 2 or 3 weeks prior to you starting to look, you've probably never looked at a photographer before. So in that 2 to 3 week buying window, you need to be in front of them as many times as you possibly can. So for me, that might be the ad kicks off the process, and then the posting daily reminds them that you're there, because they might make inquiries with 4 or 5 photographers. And if you're the photographer that's putting work out there that resonates with them for them to see over that period of time, you know, you get the response on the email, you get the conversation started, and then you can meet them. And unless you're doing that, I feel like you're really kind of missing opportunities.
I think your key word there was resonate. You've obviously have a bit of a business mind and a bit of a marketing mind. How important do you think niching and specialization is?
As in like weddings as a niche or specialization, or just...
Going further than that, niching within weddings, niching your style, refining your style. How important do you think... let's split into 2 questions. One, specializing. Do you think photographers have to shoot just weddings or just one genre of things to be successful? And 2, do you think how niche do you make your style within your specialization?
Define success. Is it about money, or is it about a career in photography?
Good one.
Because it's not about money for everybody. So
so let's say, that's a tricky one. Let's say being full time.
Being full time, making it a career. Yeah. I think it is very important to niche into the industry. I think you really need to dive in. On the surface, it might look like a niche, and then once you're in weddings, it opens up and you realize it's huge. And then within the wedding industry alone, there's so many niches of just style and ways to add value and deliver products to couples. So, it's something you've really got to commit to, I think. A lot of people do this as a side hustle or a job on the side, and I think our industry can be broken down into 2 types of photographers. There's the service, and then there's the art. And some couples, it's a tick box exercise. I need a photographer, you have a camera, I'll hire you, right? They don't put a lot of thought into it. And then there's the other side who really look into the work and want to connect with the work and resonate with the work and feel something, and their photos are really important to them. So early on, you got to really decide which kind of photographer are you, and it's okay to be a mix of the 2, right? Like if I shoot 50 weddings in a year, there's a good portion of those who have hired me just because they've seen my work and I seem reliable and cool. Erik, just take the photos, whatever. They don't care. And then there's another half that is... they have a really particular view of how they want their photos to look, and that can be really exciting. And for me, that's the side of the industry that I love, is niching into a particular style, and that's where your fans can find you. People talk about having fans. I think it's as simple as someone who really just looks at your work and falls in love with it, and no matter what, they're prepared to hire you as long as you're not crazy out of their budget. And they're the kind of couples that can really get you excited about what we do. And for me, you got to niche into something or in order to create that, right? Like if you're trying to do all genres of styles within weddings, your work can look a little bit scattered and a little bit messy, and it could be, you know, a particular type of technique that you use. You know, some define it as being more dark and moody versus light and bright. But it might be just the way you do a particular thing very, 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 very well that someone connects with. And when I meet with couples who really have fallen in love with my work, I tend to ask them, what was it that you found? And they don't often know. Sometimes they just look at it and they go, there's something about this that I love. And I'm looking at it like, okay, there's some, you know, rule of thirds going on here. There's some framing and all these other photography compositions, but they just see something that they really love. So if you can niche into a style that really helps you to define your work, that's always going to be a benefit to you. It's going to help you stand out from the crowd. But it doesn't always work when it comes to just booking couples who just need a photographer and maybe aren't noticing that niche.
Depends who you're trying to market to.
Exactly.
Yep. I agree with that. I am trying to attract the client who appreciates the work. I've done a few weddings now where the clients really appreciated what I've produced,
yep.
and I've got incredible feedback, and that's who I want to work with, because I've been slowly piecing together my style for a long period of time.
Yep.
And the one thing that I really took away from my uni degree was I got told by Tony, point your camera in the other direction. Don't follow what other people are doing, and stand out from the rest. And I don't think that would apply to weddings.
Yeah,
but it does.
Yeah,
it's very important to have your unique perspective and your unique skill set to come through in your work. So then you're not the same as everyone else. Because
I think our life experiences follow us into our industries. A lot of photographers I talk to who have had maybe, you know, different backgrounds in photography, they bring those elements into how they shoot a wedding day. And the thing I learned about weddings is when you first enter, the first thing you think is you Google wedding photographer and you see a lot of really cheesy photos and you think, I don't want to do that. You know, that's not me. And then you realize pretty quickly that you can shoot your way, and if you can just do what you love, your people will find you and they'll follow you. And how wild your style is might depend on how many people find you. You know, if you're way out there with a particular style or niche, then maybe there's not as many people out there who will resonate with that, so you can be limiting yourself. So I think there's a bit of flexibility that comes with it. You know, there's I've heard people say, you know, this is my style and I don't deviate from it, or this is how I do it and I don't change. Well, I don't mind adapting, and I find that as part of a challenge as well. You know, couples will come to you with a huge Pinterest board of all these other photographers' work, and you know, some photographers get a little bit annoyed with that. It can be annoying, but at the same time, I like to look at it and say, why do you like these photos? What is it about them? And they don't even really know themselves. They've just picked a whole bunch of cool stuff from Pinterest and they said, I want to do this. And I'm like, well, that photo's taken in New York and we're in Perth. So, you know, there's going to be an element of difference there. But hey, I'll take the challenge on and try and make this into something that might resonate with an urban New York vibe, right? So how can I break that down? And a lot of that goes into pre-planning before weddings, which I think sometimes gets missed in conversations and workshops and the learning piece.
How important do you think pre-planning is for a wedding photographer?
I think it's essential.
I think it's everything as well. I think it's a 10 out of 10 importance.
It can be the difference between you turning up and freaking out and you know, running around trying to find something on the day versus you turning up.
How many photographers are doing it?
I think there's a bit of a journey, right? Like I think there's photographers who've been doing this for a long time, and they kind of get, and we're all guilty of this, right? You slip into a little bit of a pattern and habits, and you turn up to a bunch of weddings and you just start shooting them the same way, week in, week out. And I think that's part of the journey. A few years in, it tends to happen to all of us, and then you got to shake yourself and go, okay, hang on, I gotta try and experiment here, right? So I think it's important.
Do you notice that a lot of people aren't planning? Have you seen that?
It's hard to say what kind of planning people might do, because you might just do a little bit of research on the couple and stalk them on Instagram and call that planning, right? Like one photographer to one.
So we should. I know with my couples that when they get in touch, I instantly start being building a timeline.
Yep.
I think timelines are really important for wedding photographer and videographer. Reason being is so important is, in the most essential form, you need to have good light to have good photos. So if they want the golden hour photos, you can't get the golden hour photos at midday. No. So you need to make sure you're in the right spot at the right time. That's number one. And then I think the other parts of it is making sure the couple's stress free on the day. And if they have an expectation that they're going to have a Pinterest board of photos captured at their pre-wedding getting ready part of the day, having the expectation that they're going to be able to capture all these photos in a 30-minute block, and then you're looking at the schedule going, you're not going to get that in 30 minutes. Like there's that professional input as well. It's making sure the couple has realistic expectations, and they're not going to stress themselves out to get all these photos that they're trying to get, that it's not actually going to be possible to get them all.
I think it comes down to the client journey as well, and their how satisfied they're at the end of the process. I'm a part of a few different photography, wedding photographer groups on Facebook. We're all professionals and we're all chatting about different things we're going through, and it quite often comes up, there's a couple who is unhappy with the result, and there's, a stubborn photographer and a client who's not happy, and it's like, well, this is what I do and I wanted this and whatever, right? So I think part of the process is you got to set expectations early in the piece, and you got to find out what they're looking for, right? And a really good example of that is portrait hour. So it's easy to assume what they might want during portrait hour. Yeah, cool. We're going to go do golden hour photos. It's going to be amazing. But unless you actually sit and ask them, what are they looking for, and what have they seen? What have they enjoyed? What do they resonate with? They might be talking about taking photos 2 hours before sunset, which is lighter and brighter and, a completely different look. So you might then adapt the schedule to fit that because that's what they want. Where if you don't ask those questions and they don't quite understand what they want, but they hope that on wedding day you figure it out, and then you go and do these absolute bangers at golden hour and they're like, oh, it's all backlit, sun flared and orange, right?
That communication's everything. That communication's everything.
Yeah.
And you're going to run into unhappy clients if you're not transparent and honest in the lead up. And I think that's where...
I think it's very hard early on, particularly going back to couples that, produce a Pinterest board. If you're new to the industry and they give you this Pinterest board, you can have a little bit of a freak out and think, oh my God, I can't do anything on here. Or there's some I can, but there's a lot I can't. Or, so we tend to overpromise and underdeliver when we're newer to the industry because we just want to please the client.
Yes.
And we're just like, okay, I'll figure this out. And,
so how can that turn out for most?
It often turns out bad.
Yes, it does.
I don't really know a time where it's turned out good. It's definitely you can definitely figure it out, but you need to know what your limitations are. And until you know what your limitations are, you're really just promising something that you don't know whether you can deliver or not. So that comes with experience. So I think treading lightly and cautiously early on about what you promise is very, very important. But at the same time, as you get that experience and a couple turns up and says, I want this, this, and this, often couples will say, I want to go to the beach and get photos during portrait hour, and just laying the expectations early and say, listen, it's going to be a 20-minute drive. I'm going to get you to the car, get you out of the car, and then we're going to take some photos, and then we're going to get you in the car, drive 20 minutes and get you back. You're going to miss an hour and a half to 2 hours of your wedding reception. And your wedding reception venue costs $20,000 and you've only got it for 5 hours. So what's that? $4,500 or something per hour. So every hour you're not there, that's a big chunk of money you're not experiencing. So what if we didn't go to the beach, and what if I just had you for 20 minutes here, and then at sunset I take you for another 20 minutes and you have a great experience, and I don't fatigue you too much with photos, but you get beautiful photos and you have a great time with your friends and family. And how about that? Does that sound like something that might work? And if you can lay that out for them so they understand, that they'll make better decisions for you and make your life easier.
Really well said. I think planning isn't a expert-led approach. It's a collaborative approach. You want to understand what your couple wants, and you want to be able to provide them that. And as a professional, you want to facilitate that conversation.
Going back to what we were talking about early on with the sales and sitting down in front of a client, like a lot of photographers always, the conversation is, do you still meet with your couples, right? I meet with every single one of them if I can in person, because I feel like you need to sit there and you need to understand what they want, right?
It's important.
Zoom is okay, and it served the purpose.
I usually do my initial phone call either on the phone or on Zoom. Or Google Meet's what everyone's using now. But that pre-meeting, I like to do it in person. I like to bring people here. At some stage,
it doesn't have to be early on.
Whatever.
Yeah, at some point you really got to sit with them and understand. And sometimes that's during the engagement shoot we do that. So The saying when I first started my career in sales was in real estate, and someone said to me, when you're sitting in someone's house and
you're in real estate.
Yeah, it was a long
it's a
time.
big jump.
long time ago. When you're sitting in someone's house and they want to sell their house and you want to sell it for them, and they offer you a cup of tea and you're sitting down and drinking coffee. If you get to the end of the conversation and your coffee cup is still full, then you've done a good job. Because, sorry, I got that around the wrong way. If their coffee cup is still full, you've done a good job because they can't talk and drink coffee at the same time. So, if you're talking too much, then you can't drink your coffee. So it's the old listening, taking notes, and then at the end of the conversation, you can help to provide a solution, not during.
It's a really brilliant way, man. I did a social work degree. That was my second degree. Then I was a therapist for 2 years. What we learned in that course was exactly like you said, communication's everything, listening's everything, active listening, actually understanding, not positioning yourself too much like an expert. Yes, you want to be an expert, but you want to be a collaborative expert.
Yep.
You want to meet people and you want to listen to them and you want to provide. You almost want people to be led to their own answers in a way. So you're almost a therapist in a way, doing this sales tactics. It's really interesting.
There's a bit of psychology to it, but I think definitely. As well as particularly when you're newer to the industry, newer to sales, there's a fear that unless you're showing expertise, that they're not going to trust you or they're not going to believe that you're good enough to deliver whatever it is.
So you think people try to overreach their expertise and find...
I think, they try and, I'm an expert, let me tell you how great it can be, blah, blah, blah. You can really try to, you think that you need to get that across because of your own insecurity sometimes in sales early on in all types of sales. So when I used to train new salespeople, it was why, they turn up to a client meeting and they just talk the whole time. It's because they're trying to show that they have the knowledge to be the right person for them, right? But what they've not done is listen at all, and they've not come up with the right answers, and they've left that meeting. They walk out of that meeting and they'd say, "Oh, that was great. God, yeah, I got it all across the line. I told them about all the great packages that we have and how it works, and that'll be a sure thing." And then only to find out that you just completely missed the mark because you never listened. So yeah, it's a big part of it. And I think it's particularly for weddings, you're dealing with people who don't know, they've never planned a wedding before a lot of the time. So you got to really listen and help guide.
Brilliant advice. Thanks for the follow, Raj. I really appreciate that. Anyone who's watching at the moment, we have Erik in, full-time wedding photographer. Please feel free to ask any questions. We will be running through a couple and asking those or answering those. Sorry. So anything on lighting, anything on gear. He's a Sony shooter. Anything on business and marketing. This guy's a sales genius. So I would use this opportunity and get some valuable knowledge from a very talented photographer and businessman. Before we go into your journey, the whole thing's been a journey into this conversation's been a journey.
Yeah.
The next step in your business journey, which is venues. Let's just chat about your style and your images a little bit. How do you think of what do you think makes a good photo?
It's tricky, I think, because the nature of our work is...
thanks for the follow, Richard. Really appreciate that. Feel free to ask us a question.
I think with the nature of our work, it's not necessarily what I think makes a really good photo, but how it fits in with the whole day and the representation of that day. So, we bring a whole different type... We bring a whole range of genres of photography into a wedding day, from documenting to some editorial poses to candid moments and action moments. There's all these things that come into a day, and I think photos come out of those different parts of the day in different ways. And I think what's most important is a wedding is a really unique time where so many different creatives all converge on one spot, because you consider... I consider myself as a photographer, an artist, a creative, whatever, but the cake maker is also a creative and an artist, the makeup artist, the venue and their architecture and their landscaping, the celebrant and their script writing and presentation skills. They're all creatives and they all come together on a day, and it's my responsibility to give representation to that in the best possible way, in the best possible light.
So every time you're creating an image, whether it be of the editorial pose, whether it be the candid moment. Are you thinking about your use of composition and lighting in a way to make that moment stand out more?
Yeah, I think it's very important that you put your. It's one thing to turn up and just take a photo, right? I think some people kind of get to that point and they go, I can take a good photo. I think it's our responsibility to put our craft into representing what that is. So if you're taking a photo of the table setting and a stylist has done an amazing job, and there's some beautiful place settings, some cards, the whole work, right? And if you just turn up and take that photo, I don't think you're giving it enough justice. I think you've got to bring something to that puts your creativity on top of a layer that is what they've created, and that's lighting usually, composition, obviously a big one, subject, how you frame it, all that sort of stuff. So there's a whole toolkit that you can apply, and so every setting is different, and the more toolkits you have in your tool bag, the more likely you are to come up with a good solution for what you're looking at that moment in time. So yeah, I always run with a flash. I always have different lighting solutions with me. And sometimes you look at something and you think, you know what, I think this is going to work really well with a particular type of light. So yeah,
I agree. I think that's really well said. I'm the same. So it's come up a few times in the last few episodes, but first came up with Luke Johnson. Luke Johnson said he read that what makes a good photograph is three things: the lighting, the composition, and the moment. And I agreed. I think those are the three things that make up a good photograph usually. And that is more so what I'm looking for. But then I try to break it down, and I was like, what am I actually doing? And usually what I'm doing is I'm seeing a moment, and then with the moment I'm making a choice around the composition I'm using, and then around the lighting I'm using to make the moment have a sense of feeling. I think it's relatable to how color graders scene to evoke a sense of feeling, or how directors of lighting use lighting on a film set to evoke a sense of mood or atmosphere. So it's a very similar kind of way that I think about lighting and composition, where happy moments you might have brighter and bolder photos on a wider focal length, or more intimate moments you might have more directional soft lighting on on a tighter frame, and trying to piece images together this way. And I think that's what photographers should be thinking about on the day, really as well. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, there's so many different elements, and there's a rule book to composition, and then you can throw the rule book out. It doesn't matter really what you do, as long as what you're doing is flattering and is true to the day to some extent, but also you've added something to it, right? Like, I think it's, unless you come and add to, you're not really justifying what's happening there, and we add by light, composition, and subject. So I think that we can always be working on and mastering those three things.
Yeah. So what's one thing that you kind of do? How do you use lighting to convey emotion? Maybe it's a good question.
I think my kind of approach to lighting, and let's say use the portrait hour as a good example. I kind of go through a cycle of getting the safe photo, so getting a nice photo of them together, well lit. Maybe the sun might be behind me, but they're just beautifully lit and they look great, right? Grandma's going to love that photo on the wall. And then we start to get a bit of movement, we get a bit of action, and depending on the couple, I'll adapt to what I think might work for them. So a little bit of motion blur if they're energetic and prepared to kind of mess around a little bit, or if they will resonate with a more intimate, tight shot, then how can we rim light them nicely and use natural light as best as possible. I'm a big fan of natural light because I think it's easy, it's readily available. It doesn't always have to be the sun coming through and creating a flare behind them, like typical golden hour photo. It could be very, very, very soft light that's coming through 20 minutes after sunset through a window that you found as you're walking back to the reception. You really got to have your eyes open, and I think the wider you can see, the better you will spot the opportunities. And I think going back to my process is getting that safe photo early, and then working into a little bit more of experimental light as we go through that time. They relax into the session, and I start to get a little bit more creative. So I give them a good mix of what's beautiful and natural and how they are, and then take them into an area that's a little bit more creative, maybe some wide silhouettes, maybe, just something completely crazy where they lay on the ground and, do something weird. So it's dependent on the individuals, but I think just looking at what you have in front of you and being open to what happens around you. Because the big thing that often happens when I have a second shooter, you can get a little bit of tunnel vision. We all do it, right? We're seeing something that we want to do, and you're so focused on trying to get that you're completely missing something beautiful that's happening just over here. Like you said earlier, turning the camera around and looking at something that's happening behind you. So the more that you can be aware and the more you can step out of that kind of focus and what can be sometimes very stressful situation, pausing it for a second. The big one I learnt was from a friend is he would just sometimes every now and then go, oh, my battery's flat. I'm going to quickly just go and change. Guys, just hang out there for a second. I'll be back. And he'd walk off, go to find his bag very slowly, not even change the battery, just look around, take a deep breath, take note of what's been happening, and then go, oh my God. And they start doing something themselves, right? They start acting very naturally because now the camera's off them and you've had a chance to reset and see something. It's the whole act of seeing.
Amazing.
I think.
Yeah. That's a really amazing way to look at it. 20 minutes after sunset. Surprisingly, the light's really directional still.
It's beautiful.
It's amazing, man.
One of the favorite times to shoot.
It's the best time to shoot.
And it doesn't have to be dark and moody either. It can, our cameras are excellent at shooting at 6400 ISO, right?
64 with 1.4, 1.2s now.
Yep.
IBIS, low shutter speeds.
Yep.
What you can do is amazing, but it was a big transition for me to begin shooting in that time. The thing that I realized was I would hold my hand up and then over time I realized there was still a light pattern. One side was brighter than the other.
Yeah.
And where the sun was setting, it was still casting a certain direction of light. And you can use that in a way to create really moody images, really dramatic images. And it actually has a very beautiful cast, and the shadows are also very subtle as well, but still deep. And I don't know, I like playing around with like that blue hour time. Really just opened my mind to how flexible and adaptable lighting is.
Yeah,
natural light specifically.
I've been at weddings where I felt like golden hours happened and I didn't really get what I wanted, and you can almost start to panic a little bit because the clock's ticking, the light's gone, and oh my God, like I haven't got something for them yet. And then in that like dying moment of light, you find something and you just shoot it, and then later when you're editing you're like, oh my God, this looks so good, like why haven't I done more of this kind of really kind of different time? But I think you learn, right? And you learn to see light. It's a trained thing, and I'm by all means no expert. Every day I see different things and learn different things, and the best thing I've ever done is try and do as many different workshops and stuff that come past, and you always just pick up something that you weren't necessarily looking for before.
I think what makes good photographers is that open-minded approach, appreciating that there's different ways to do things.
Yeah. Perhaps
your approach isn't always the best approach.
No.
And
always so true. And
learning.
There's a videographer in Melbourne, Jackson Grant, and he's really blown up recently. And I've worked with him before when I was in Melbourne, and his style is so unique. It's you've got to go and have a look, right? Like it's vibrant, it's saturated. He shoots it like a 16 millimeter lens, like it's wide and distorted, and it's against all of the norms. But when you look at it, it's so you make good photos, man. Interesting.
So you make good photos.
It's amazing, right?
Because I think when you're a landscape photographer, let's say, have you ever done landscape photography?
Yeah.
How do you get a good landscape photo?
It's tricky. It's all about light. Like if you don't have light,
you pick the time with the most unique lighting, right? With the most different lighting. The sunset, that pinnacle of the sunset.
You can have the most amazing vista, but it's also then trying to see within the landscape as well. Yes. Like I follow a lot of great photographers who are shooting forests, and that's the biggest, most difficult genre of landscapes, I think, is because I try it myself, and you walk into a forest and all you see is the trees, and how they then narrow in and can see one particular tree that's leaning a particular way and doing something.
But it's that uniqueness, right? It's that slight differentiation that catches your eye, and you go, oh, that's amazing, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that slight, you got the rules, but there's something slightly off. Maybe the tree's a little bit bent, or the lining's a little bit more. You know.
And I know a younger me when I was very naive and thought, I could get that photo right. I need a good photo for my wall. I'd go out and try, and I'd be like, why isn't my photo looking that good? And it's the years of practice and going back to what you're saying about niching. I think unless you really niche, you're never going to reach the heights of what real talented wedding photographers can do. You'll scratch the surface, you'll make some money, you'll book some weddings, you'll become a good service provider, and maybe you'll take some cool photos, right? But to really reach the heights, and you've got to want to, right? Not everyone wants to, reach the top. And we're always striving to reach the top, and I don't know if anyone ever gets there, but like you got to want to keep improving, and some people are just very happy to kind of settle with where they are. So I think the more you can really focus on your craft in one particular style and area or industry, the better of an expert you can become. And
how many weddings do you think you need to shoot a year to be able to develop this kind of expertise? How much time do you need to devote to it?
Well, it's a good question, and my family know this because I dedicate a lot of time, and it becomes a high priority when you're giving up every weekend, and then you're trying to squeeze engagement shoots. So I do most of my engagement shoots all year round, and they're usually on Sunday afternoons. So I'm really giving up my Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and that's a commitment I made. It's very difficult from a family life perspective, particularly with your wife who works a full-time job, and Saturdays they've got something they want to do, and you got kids, and you're at a wedding, and there's a lot of sacrifices that are made. But on the flip side, there's a lot of positives that come. I get to pick my kids up from school every day. I get to drop them off, and if they're sick, I'm home, right? So the Monday to Friday is great. So yeah, you've got to really be dedicated to the industry, and you've got to really want it. And I think the number can vary. The topic of conversation that comes up a lot is, how can I shoot less for more? I think I've always been very happy with a round number of about 40 is my minimum per year. And that usually then fluctuates between 55 and 85 weddings for a year. So I book my 40 and I'm happy, and I know I can pay the bills, and life will be great. And then anything that comes on top of that's all going to be a bonus. So, and usually, there's other stuff that pile in. So that number is then dependent on how much you're charging, right? So like you could shoot 40 weddings and you're only charging $2,500. You're probably not going to make a sustainable business. You might only have time to shoot 10 weddings in a year, and you want to charge $10,000. But I think unless you've built up so much momentum and really kind of found your path, then it can be very difficult to make that sustainable. I think sometimes raising your prices too quickly, too soon can sometimes be to the detriment, particularly when we are in an industry that is, we don't dictate the prices. The consumer does, and if they're not prepared to pay the price, then... Have you seen a decrease in what you're able to command as a wedding photographer? I think there has been, definitely. I think the industry average has dropped. I think there's a number of factors to that because, one, obviously cost of living's a really tricky point. We're in an industry that we're very lucky. It is a luxury item. It's a luxury to spend a lot of money on your wedding. But the photography elements, it's an important part of it. So there's always going to be a photographer. Just how much is the couple willing to pay? And are they prepared to forego someone's creative style in order to just get someone there on the day and photograph it, right? And so I might charge more because I have this creative flair, but someone who just gets the job done and consistently does a really good job, but they're a bit cheaper, they might just feel that that service at that time, right, when things are a little tougher. But to go back to your question, it's definitely been in the last year or two a shift. I think content creation has probably affected that shift a little bit too. What way do you think content creation's impacted? It's coming at a lower price point, right? So for someone who doesn't know anything about photography, you're looking for a photographer and you're thinking, why is the photographer $5,500 and the videographer's $5,000 and content creators $1,500? Like, they're just taking photos. They're all doing the same thing on the day, right? They don't quite know. So there's this price difference there, and there's an educational piece that a lot of couples do kind of dive down and figure out what the differences are, and some don't. So it can be then a question of, well, do I need a videographer? Can I just get the content creator and save $4,000 or $5,000 and spend that somewhere else? I think it's the videographers who have probably been affected a little bit more by content creation, but it's also affecting the photographers because it's, why am I paying $5,500 when I could have a content creator who's going to do photo and video off a mobile phone and like please explain is a little bit of why is the budget so high. So there's more questions around that, I think, as to why. And I think there's been a little bit of an adaptation for our industry to re-point where that kind of median price is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think I have definitely seen a big decline in the wedding space. Even since when I started my first weddings early on after I graduated till now, my rates haven't gone up really at all. Actually, I think I was booking weddings at a higher rate when I had like one or two under my belt compared. So I've seen the wedding industry kind of being a bit of a shambles at the moment.
Yeah,
it's a bit all over.
I don't know. I'm being optimistic. I think we go through cycles. It's supply and demand as well, right?
It's a cycle.
So
I personally think after COVID, a lot of people came into the industry because there was that big boom. But now all of that has dropped off, and there's a lot of photographers left over. There's an oversupply of photographers and an undersupply of weddings because now all the weddings have kind of they're done, and people have a cost of living because of the inflation caused from increased spending because of
and we did go through a 2-year period there where probably less people met during COVID. So that's definitely has a flow-on effect to that sort of 4 to 5 year window where they might be proposing and getting married, right? So like we're smack bang in the middle of that right now. So it's definitely supply and demand. There's always been fluctuations of new photographers coming into the market. It usually often goes with economy and the way, when there's a downturn, people are being made redundant and they see an opportunity to pick up a camera and become a wedding photographer. Like you see that over and over again, right? And then and then the industry picks up, the economy picks back up, and people go back to doing their full-time jobs again, and they exit the market. So I think it's a very transient industry as well. You get a lot of people come in for the first year, and they book a few weddings, right? They get a few, and they make some money, and then it's that transition from going from shooting 5 or 10 weddings in a year.
I'm out of battery. I forgot to plug my camera in. Val just told me. Sorry.
That's okay.
See if it turns back on. We're back on. Thank you, Val. Really appreciate that. What's up? Is that Elijah? Thanks for jumping in. What's up? Feel free to ask us any questions. Damn, I was right in the middle of that. Bloody camera.
That's all right.
I think, we're definitely in that per capita recession. I think that's very obvious. I think there's many different reasons why we're seeing this decrease in spending in the consumer markets, a business to consumer. It's definitely taken a hit. Weddings specifically, couples not getting married now because there was that window where no one met. That's a really interesting point as well. There's so many things that people just keep saying stuff to me, and I'm like, but we're probably never really going to know. And coming back to that journey, it ebbs and flows. We're in a dip at the moment, and build when we're dipping. Build when the times are tough, and when the times are good, you're going to be
okay when the sun shines. And I think that's exactly, you got to survive the downturns. And going back to something you said earlier about discounting and lowering prices and stuff like that, I think now more than ever people are considering that and are doing it. I think
it's everywhere, man. 50% off everywhere.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
I'm not afraid of reviewing pricing, adjusting pricing, and it's about doing it in the right context, I think.
I guess my question's more so, how do you feel when a wedding vendor has had a 50% sale discount for the last 24 months?
It's a marketing tactic.
Yeah, and
it is.
But is it the correct marketing tactic?
It's a marketing tactic that works because it works across all industries where suckers for a good deal, right? So you're scrolling Instagram and a TV's got a 20% discount and suddenly I might need a new TV. So it works. I can't blame people for using it. Advertising, I think it'd be tricky in our industry because we work to an 18-month horizon, right? So we're booking clients who are going to use our services 12 to 18 months from now. And then you suddenly go and post a discount. You're going to offend a whole lot of your your clientele now who've paid full price, and then you suddenly start throwing out discounts for a few months.
I personally don't think it's the right marketing tactic for weddings.
I don't think. I think when you're in a conversation with your couple and you're talking about what they want, you can tailor your packages so that the value meets their expectations, and it's often a bit of a give and take, right? So I can give you a discount, but we're going to take maybe something out that you don't feel like you really need. Let's be flexible. Let's customize this a little bit. There's so many things that we can offer in our packages to add value. And I think the biggest thing is we take money, and you've always got to give back more value than you take. And that value comes in so many different forms. And if you have quite a few things that you can put on the table, then there's opportunities to use those to negotiate as well.
What do you take out of your packages? How do you negotiate in a wedding context?
I have quite a few different things that I lean on and experiment with in packages. So I have wedding books that are a coffee table style book. It's a 200-page. It's a different book to an album, which is a more traditional book. You get 4 copies. And they're a soft cover, and they're just beautiful just to chuck on the coffee table. They're really well made, and they're in every single one of my packages because I think it's a bit sad if your photos end up somewhere on a hard drive, and when the couple wants to go and look at their photos, they got to dig through their folders and where did I have these photos saved, and then click. It's where if you've got a book and print on the table, it's beautiful, and not every couple will go and do the printing themselves. I remember for years I'd be like, who's printing their books or photos? Get around to it one day. No one ever does it, right? So it's in my package. It's there. This is what you're going to get, right? You're going to love it, and when they see and touch it, couples really can't understand why it's such a valuable thing. That is one thing that if a couple really wants to save money, you can take that out. The engagement shoot, you can take that out. It's not going to affect the price all that much because it doesn't cost me so much to do an engagement shoot. So I don't tend to discount just based on taking an engagement shoot out, but it might just mean that I can be flexible in other areas. Video content is also something that photographers are adding into their packages. So, I've dabbled a little bit with that. I don't know how sustainable it is trying to be a hybrid shooter. It's a lot of work, but you can also move in and out of recommendations and things like that in other vendors that you partner with. So, you might have a videographer that you offer a package deal with when you work with them. So there's lots of things you can get creative, and you got to figure out what it is. Some people just have prints. Some people print 2 pictures off and send 2 framed images to their couples afterwards. Sometimes it's the welcome pack or the thank you pack that you give at the end, right? You might say, okay, well, I'm going to discount them a little bit, and they're not going to get that little surprise at the end of the day.
Sure. Yeah, sure. That's a really good way to look at it. The more photographers I speak with who have been in the industry for a long time, they have this negotiation. They're very good at it. But they do it in a smart way, not a way where it's like you explained. You have things in your packages that you have in there because you feel like they're an essential part of the wedding experience that you provide.
Yeah.
But we can take them out. Yeah, love that. That's really good. So you've been in this industry for a long time, and now the next chapter is here.
Yeah.
Are you going to stop doing so? So maybe I should ask first. So you shoot anywhere between 40 and 80 weddings a year.
Yes.
Minimum 40 and maximum 80.
Yep.
When did you get when was the first year you did 40 weddings? So someone who's getting into the industry, what's that timeline going to look like? When can they expect to get that 40?
Yep. So the first couple of years I kind of built up from like 1 to 5 to 10. Once I hit 20, that was the minimum. That's the absolute minimum number I need to survive, right? Like I'm not saving any money. I'm just paying the bills. And I hit that fairly early on. I think it was about my 2nd or 3rd year. I knew I had 20 in the bank. And then from 20 to 40 happened very quickly. And also then rolling into 2020 and COVID in Melbourne, what seemed like it was going to be a very dire period ended up being a very fruitful one because so many couples needed to try and squeeze their weddings into certain dates. So there was a lot of work around. So I think 2021 I did 85 weddings. And then from there, that momentum just managed to carry on. So yeah, I figured out that once I could shoot a wedding well, and then I knew how to market that content, getting the numbers up was just a constant bit of work that you do every month. It's you shoot weddings, you edit weddings, and you do marketing.
Isabel says, this episode is one of the best. So many great questions and even better answers.
Thank
Good
you.
one, Eric.
Thanks, Isabel.
So, why not just stick on shooting 40 to 80 weddings a year? Why the jump to your venue, which is going to be called Cherry Bomb
Chapel.
Cherry Bomb Chapel. Can
barely
even read my writing.
Yep.
So Perth City venue.
Yes.
Very funky wedding venue.
Some context to it. On the side, we've been working away at opening a wedding venue. And I wouldn't say it's there to... Well, the big thing for me is I didn't want to ever take away from my photography.
Okay, so you still want to continue to do photography?
100%.
Okay, sure.
I love photography. I like wedding photography a lot. And
do you think you'll ever stop?
I think the challenge is there's probably a ceiling to your age.
I know, man. It's like...
You get older.
It's hard on the body.
And the couples stay at a certain age. So one, you've got to continue to resonate with your couples as you get older and maybe slip out of some of the trends. It also does get harder on the body. So I think there's a gradual decline in the total number of weddings you can do in a year. Like right now, I think last year I did 1 week. I had 5 weddings in 1 week, right? And I was knocked out pretty hard. 1 wedding is enough to really put you on your butt for
it's a lot, man.
For a day, right?
12-hour day. How long do you shoot for, by the way? Do you ever do 12-hour days?
I just call it a full day package because every wedding's different. So I hate to say like fit everything into 8 hours. I'd rather have a long day that's slow and moves smoothly than a day that's crammed and fits my schedule.
So how many packages do you offer?
I offer 3.
3 packages.
2 of them are just a full day. Just one that's an all-in and a light version. So fits different budgets categories. And then I just have a half day. Keep it really simple.
3 packages.
3 packages. That is it.
Right. And your full day is just a set price. And then that set price, you don't put a cap on the time. It's just you book me for the day.
There's a soft cap, and usually.
And what's that cap?
I say it's between 8 and 9 hours, and sometimes it goes more than 9 hours. The jump is when couples want me to stay till the end of the reception to shoot their exit. That's the only time I ever get asked to do more, or if there's pre-activities prior to getting ready, Chinese tea ceremonies.
I have a wedding in 2027. Like I'm a bit nervous for it. They've booked me and my videographer and a second shooter for 12 hours. 12 hours.
It's a big day, yeah.
Big day, man.
I feel like depending on I've done 8-hour days that are just so hectic, you just wiped at the end of it.
Yeah.
And then I've done 12-hour days that were just beautiful. And some weddings you just find time where you actually get an opportunity to stop, have a drink, get some food, maybe sit down for a minute. And then there's 8-hour days that you are just so hectic that you just, and your mind is continuously on. Both yield different results at the end of the day, but I think it's a tough job, definitely on the body. So there's a time limit, I think, to how many weddings you can shoot for how long as you get a little bit older. Not saying that I'm old now, but we're talking. I've still got 30 years of career worth ahead of me. So planning for that, I think a lot of photographers talk about they call it the exit strategy, but it is the what's next. Because it can be quite scary being a full-time wedding photographer and thinking, what am I going to be doing when I'm 55? 15 years from now, where will I be?
Yes.
And when I get kicked out of this because suddenly couples don't think I'm cool enough to be their wedding photographer anymore, what will I do? So part of that was thinking about how can I stay within this industry that's so beautiful and that I love, and use the experience that I've had over the years to then adapt into something else and expand. And opening a wedding venue was always something that was in the back of my mind. Then the opportunity came about last year. It's a funny story, actually, and going back to talking about doing things for free, I got a call up to do a styled shoot at a wedding venue their photographer had bailed, and it was about a week before. And I was like, I'm not going to get paid. It's a collaboration, but you never know what will come of it, right? So went along, and the planner stylist was Jody and Sean from Honey Events. And I saw their Instagram.
Shout out to them.
Shout out. And I had a little stalk of their Instagram before the styled shoot, and I sent them a DM and I said, hey, you guys are doing some really cool stuff. And I just moved over from Melbourne to Perth, and they really kind of had a bit more of an edgy style, and maybe something that I'd seen more of over East, where there was, I don't know, there was just something about it that was very different to the ordinary. So I said, can we talk more about doing other stuff? And it wasn't necessarily about a venue, it was about doing other styled shoots and working together and doing some creative work. We caught up. I spent a little bit of time whinging a little bit about how, not to do the Melbourne versus Perth comparison, but in Melbourne,
what is that like? What is the difference there?
There are some differences. We'll come back to that, but definitely from a venue perspective, there's some big differences. There's more variety. There's the Swan Valley is great, but it's kind of one area that it can feel very kind of similar when you're shooting there week in, week out.
Yes.
Where Melbourne has so much diversity in it, and architecture and history, character, and vibe to different styles. So in Melbourne there was a venue called the Ultra Electric, and it was just catered to small. It's basically the in between of like, I don't want to go to the registry office, but I don't want to pay $15,000-$20,000 to go to the Yarra Valley or the Swan Valley here. What's in between it, and that's where these Ultra Electrics, Rupert on Rupert, and some other venues had a really good solution, an all-inclusive type experience. Right, you just pay a set amount of money, and your celebrants there, your photographers there, your DJs there. The food is available. There's a drinks package. You just don't have to go into this full wedding planning mode to have a brilliant day. And the styling was amazing, and it was just a really good experience. So
you're trying to provide an all-inclusive experience.
Exactly, yeah. So we got talking, and I was sort of saying how this exists in Melbourne, and I haven't seen anything here in Perth. And then by happenstance, they
found a gap in the market.
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of a gap. And by happenstance, Jody was at a venue in the city that was not being utilised for a very long time, and it was full of character. It's a beautiful space. It looks really cool. And then Jody gave me a call, said, "Come have a look at this." And we had a look, and we said, "Let's see if we can help them build up some weddings together with our experience." And their background is obviously planning and styling. And it just got to the point where that interest came on very quickly, and we realized we better maybe take this lease on. So we've taken the lease on. We're in the process of, we've done a few weddings now, and we're doing some winter renovations, and we're just working on piece by piece to make this space a really cool, unique, fun, affordable space.
Looks like you have a sale. We will have our wedding party there. We just need to settle a date.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The feedback's been awesome so far. It's really good. And my contribution to it is I don't have any hospitality experience. Jody and Sean have all the hospitality experience. My background is sales, marketing, business, and photography. So it's actually been a really, really good combination between the three of us, being able to create and then photograph and then market and get this thing off the ground. I think we make a really good team. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting, Eric. I like the approach you're taking, where you're kind of making it all into one. I think that's gonna be a big thing moving forward. I think
there's a change in weddings. And it's funny when we sit down with couples who come and visit Cherry Bomb, and we explain to them what the all-inclusive actually means, and like the relief on their faces when they say, and they're not getting C or D grade vendors within these packages. Like, we've got our favorite celebrants. We have some really cool photographers who'll be working with us, really cool videographers, catering, like DJs. Anomaly DJs are doing a lot of our work for us. So we've got really cool vendors. So like they have a choice, so they can pick and mix a little bit, and we're just trying to bring it all into one place and make it really, really simple.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that. I think I'm trying to do that with my business as well. Integrate the photo and video component to remove that additional vendor that's going to be involved on the day. We can kind of internalize into one team. We can provide a much better quality service. And that's my goal. So my goal is to produce the best images I can, provide the best service I can, while doing something that I really love. Eric, I would love to keep chatting with you, man, but we're at our hour and a half.
Are we? That was quick. That was really quick.
Everyone says that, man. Everyone says that. I will cut it off, because otherwise we will just keep going.
Yeah. No.
I've gone. Last night we went for almost 2 hours. We got to 2 hours, and it was still like, do you want another whiskey? So got a bit long, and then I've gone for up to 3 hours. But it'll be great to have you back, Erik.
Sure.
I think, there's a lot of valuable stuff that you know. People love the conversation. And so, we'll see. Maybe we can get you back in, and I don't know, you can bring another guest in or something. We can do like a multi conversation, another photographer. That was really great, man. So thank you all for watching JD Photo Podcast. We are supported by Rode. So Rode have helped us get this podcast off the ground. They do incredible gear. You can hear how amazing this sounds. I've been using Rode. Do you use Rode stuff?
I do, on some of the video stuff,
There you go. I think they're great.
It's good gear.
Yeah, it's good gear. I use the Rode Wireless Pros. Use them, and then got all these mics, and I'm pretty blown away, to be honest. So if you are looking for audio gear, please buy Rode. They are really, really good. Without further chatting, thank you all so much for watching. We will be live on YouTube and Spotify, and I think we'll wrap it up there. So peace out, everyone.